Katie, and today on Tasting History, we'll be taking a journey back to the Great Depression. In commemoration of the release of the 1940 census on April 2nd, 2012, we'll be making a recipe for potato donuts. This recipe utilizes cheap and abundant ingredients for a tasty breakfast treat. It comes from the Denver Post's 1933 Spring Recipe Contest. Over 25,000 recipes were submitted by what the paper called enterprising housewives, who wished to win cash prizes, the top prize being $5, worth about $85 in today's money. Today's prize-winning recipe for potato donuts was submitted by Mrs. Ben C. Bell of Kelpit, Wyoming. With the release of the 1940 U.S. federal census to the public on April 2, 2012, researchers are given a picture of the American people in the midst of the Great Depression. With an economy riddled by bank failures, a glum manufacturing sector, and an agricultural collapse, many Americans were unemployed. And as FDR said in his 1937 inaugural address, 1/3 of the nation was ill-housed, ill-clad, and ill-nourished. Iconographic images of the Great Depression depict breadlines and soup kitchens, but rarely tell the tale of the home kitchen during the era. Although the palates of Americans didn't change dramatically during this time period, the size of their wallets did. This translated into a need for food that was economical as well as simple and efficient to prepare. For this money-saving recipe, you'll need the following ingredients: 1 cup sugar, 2 eggs, well beaten, 3 tablespoons of lard or vegetable shortening, 1 cup hot mashed potatoes, 1/4 cup milk, 2½ cups flour, 1/2 teaspoon nutmeg, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 3 teaspoons baking powder, oil or fat for deep frying, powdered sugar, chopped nuts, optional, a deep fryer, sifter, rolling pin, and a donut cutter. With the luxury of paid domestic help out of reach for many, the sale of prepackaged foods and small kitchen appliances grew rapidly during the era. Costing less to operate than a gas or electric stove, electric griddles and waffle irons became popular. When the Sunbeam Corporation introduced their inexpensive Mixmaster electric mixer in 1930, its convenience caught on quickly and reinforced the need for easy food preparation during rough times. Food storage also changed as modern refrigerator freezers replaced old-fashioned iceboxes. By 1941, there were 3 million electric refrigerators in American homes. These early models, however, had generally small freezer compartments, which meant that food couldn't yet be bought in the large, economical quantities we know today. Substitutes for expensive food items such as fats and meats became popular during the Depression. Spam, a canned mix of pork products, was cheap and didn't need refrigeration or fancy preparation. Lard and oleomargarine stood in for expensive butter. Surprisingly, sugar was extremely cheap during the 1930s, and more sugar was consumed per capita than before or since. Despite this fact, sales of store-bought baked goods plummeted during the Great Depression, as Americans cut out expensive bakery cakes and pastries from their diets. As a result, approximately 1/3 of all baking establishments in the United States went out of business during the period of 1930 through 1933. Consumers turned to home baking as a means of cutting costs. An excellent example of this is the recipe we'll make today. So to start, we're going to cream together our lard and our sugar in a mixer. So it'll be kind of fluffy once it's creamed together. Okay, that should be good. Okay, so next we're going to crack our eggs and beat them. No shell. Okay, that looks good. So now we're gonna put this in to the mix, just really slowly. Okay, so next is our milk. We're gonna add that. Okay. And then finally, we're going to add our cup of warm mashed potatoes. They can be leftovers from the night before, that's fine. Just so they're not garlic mashed potatoes. Why were potatoes used for a donut recipe? Potatoes were abundant and cheap, and in recipes they provided a starchiness similar to flour. Whereas 10 pounds of flour might have cost 29 cents in 1933, 10 pounds of potatoes would have been 9 cents. Although not proven, legend has it that potato donuts were being produced right here in Colorado, on the top of Pikes Peak in the Summit House snack bar. Okay, so now that our wet ingredients are mixed together, we want to sift together our dry ingredients. You're going to start with your flour. Just pour it into the sifter. And then we want to add our nutmeg, baking powder, and salt. And just sift it together like that. Okay, so now that we have our dry ingredients sifted together, we want to add that into our wet ingredients, and we're just going to do it very slowly. So now that our ingredients are all mixed together, we want to heat up our fryer. We're doing it up to 400. It'll take a few minutes. And so now what we want to do is roll out our dough on a floured surface. Just add a little bit of flour and our dough. You might need to knead this a little bit. It might be a little too wet. You want it to have that dough consistency. Okay, so that looks pretty good. What I like to do is use a little bit of wax paper when I'm rolling it out, so you're not getting dough all over your roller. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now we need to cut our donuts. I'm just using a traditional donut cutter, but you could use any shape that you want. You could even use a knife. So we just press and donut hole. So our fryer's all heated up, and now we want to fry our donuts. So we're just going to pick them up and put them in our basket and lower it down. It should take about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Every fryer is different. So our donut is all done. It's this caramel color when it's all through frying. You want to take it out of the basket and put it on a paper plate with some paper towels just to soak up that extra oil. We did some research into just who the woman behind this recipe, Mrs. Betsy Bell, was. It turns out her full name was Ada Power Bell. She was born in Oklahoma around 1900 and later lived with her parents in the Big Piney area of Wyoming, where she worked as a sales lady at Bernie & Company's store. She was accustomed to shooting firearms, and in 1926, she suffered a bad wound just above the eye, the result of the heavy rebound of a shotgun she had been firing. She married Ben Charles Bell, an oil field worker and World War I veteran, sometime in the late 1920s. According to the census, Ada was a housewife without children in 1930, just a few years before she won the $1 prize from the Denver Post for her economical potato doughnuts recipe. So we fried up our donuts, and we even fried up the donut holes because, like in the Great Depression, you don't want to waste anything. So now we're just going to give them a light dusting of powdered sugar. And just dust it like that. And they're all set. And I have to taste one, of course. I'm going to try one of the donut holes. It's like a traditional donut, but with the potatoes, it's a little bit heartier. So a good breakfast food will keep you going throughout the morning. If you're interested in more recipes, visit PPLD's Special Collections.